is y'all don't know anything about racing. This is true. You're right. You're in the wrong show.
Yeah.
You're watching the wrong show if you want to hear like super engineer stuff.
Honorable mention, Alpine, because hello, French Revolution.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to our F1 show, joined by my co-host Evan Sones. Evan, how's it going, man?
What's going on? What's going on, everybody? How we doing tonight? Another beautiful day down here in Miami. Not so much for our
just rubbing it in. Pretty sure we were talking about how cold it is up here in DC, and my man just went right at me there. My fault for not updating the intro. It is very dated at this point, so I deserve that one.
It's okay. It's okay. Listen, 85-degree weather is still pretty good for me, so I'll take that over an intro any day.
Yeah, can we trade? I'll do an intro if you can bring that weather up here. But anyway, we got a lot to talk about today. We had the Mexican GP was last weekend. We got Brazil this weekend, and only 3 races left. So it is winding. The Max Verstappen parade to the championship is winding down here.
Yep. Almost finished with his most dominant season of all time, pretty much.
Yeah, it really is. I think we've gotten so used to him winning every race that it's kind of like, even for, we've had dominant teams and cars over a single season, but if not for Singapore, it's Red Bull's won every race other than that. It's crazy.
Exactly.
Crazy season. And really the last 6 months, it feels like it's been just him winning. It's not Checo.
Luckily, there has been some decent stories down the grid. There's a lot of stuff going on, behind the scenes with a lot of the teams and movement and rumor mill that always happens in Formula One. But at least the racing is decent, after him, pretty much.
Yeah, no, it's one of those seasons where, if not for Max, and sometimes we say if not for a certain team, especially towards before Red Bull kind of closed the gap to Mercedes in the previous, they were finishing 1-2 consistently.
Yeah.
In this case, it's really just one, and then there's a lot of competitive racing. Let's take a look at that then from Mexico. Obviously, we didn't have predictions because we were off last week. Yeah. So, but looking at the order of finish here, obviously Max kind of ran away with it, but like you said, there's some interesting storylines. You'll notice our man Checo's not here because he decided to check out in the first quarter. What do you think about that move?
You could tell there was a lot of pressure on him going into this race. He wanted to have a good showing at his home Grand Prix, and he just sent it. He saw an opening, whether it was there or not, and just said, F it. I'm full YOLOing into the first corner, going to try to see if I could take it 3 wide. Lewis had a similar situation in Qatar, but at the end of the day, there was nothing there. He was forcing it, and that's the price you pay for forcing a situation in Formula One.
And I feel like that's what he's been doing. That's what he's been doing. And we saw in several races, leading up to this. And obviously there's one race, I think it was in a sprint race where Hamilton hit him. But he's basically continuously putting his car in a position where the other driver has to back out of it or there's going to be a crash. And eventually people are going to get sick of that and say, you know what, I'm just going to hit you because if there's no... I think it was Singapore where he basically used, I'm going to forget who it was. I think it was a Haas, but he used a car in front of him as basically a brake stop because he just hit him out of the way. And
he did the same thing in Japan too. Remember, he was coming around Bottas in Japan, or was it Bottas or Magnussen? One of the two in Japan, where he was pretty much playing bumper cars with 3 or 4 different drivers that day.
Yeah, and I think it was... might have been Gasly who called him desperate, and it does feel a little bit like that. And
it really does.
And that move was desperate. There's no way he was overtaken on the outside there. He actually got a good start. He would have slotted into third.
Yep.
But he was trying to, like you said, it was his home race. He was trying to win, I guess. I don't know what he was doing, but he He put it in a position where either Leclerc had to brake hard and back out of it or hit him. And it's the first corner. You're gonna hit him. You're not gonna sit there and back out of it and let him essentially not only let him overtake you, but every other car in the grid's right on you. Like you're gonna get passed by like 4 or 5 cars if you back out of that turn. If you're Leclerc, he's just not gonna do it. And you shouldn't have to do it. And Perez did not have to try and go around the outside there. He could have slotted in right behind him into third.
And the fact of the matter is like Checo saw, his possible replacement right there in front of him on the grid in the start of the race. You got Daniel Ricciardo right there in front of you in fourth place starting the race, and it's like it's an AlphaTauri. It's not as fast of a car. We all know this. Yes, they're showing some pace right now, but he sees that, and that's one of the things on his mind. Like this guy's gunning for my showing. I got to push. I got to go faster. I got to do something. And this is a result when you push and you're not smooth and you're not confident in the moves that you make or overconfident. In some situations, and you pay the price for it.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I think it was definitely weighing on him in terms of like I can't get beat by Ricciardo and AlphaTauri right now.
Yeah.
And what he ended up doing? He ended up getting out of the first quarter and kind of reinforcing that maybe he shouldn't be in Formula One anymore, to be honest, the way he's been driving. But I guess the other story you talked about, like Ricciardo in fourth, when the qualifying in that position, obviously it's on the screen, finished in seventh. What are your thoughts there? That's his first time he's actually been able to put the car out there. So,
I mean, qualifying was so weird this race. I mean, you have the McLarens, looking decent, but Lando was out in Q1. The AlphaTauris were doing good. We all know this is a high-speed track. We all know the thin air in Mexico, being the altitude that they're at, it makes it for a quick track. And these quicker cars, like Albon was in the top 10 qualifying too, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like, so those Williams were fast as well. Those low downforce or those low drag cars that they have, can have pace, especially on tracks like this. So it qualifying really set up for what ended up being a pretty eventful race overall, especially with the fact that, like I said, with Lando being as far down as he was and having to come through the field. And then, Ricciardo had a great race right up there in the midfield. Like you said, he did lose a few spots, but I mean, you kind of expect that when you have cars that have better race pace. On a one lap pace is one thing, but race pace is a completely different thing. And that AlphaTauri, as good as it seemed to be over one lap, for those qualifyings, you could tell that he just had to back out sometimes. He had to let them pass, because he just can't keep up, especially on how hard they work the tires.
Yeah, and also you mentioned like the elevation of thin air that can cause engine trouble too. So over one lap, you're kind of less worried about that. What do you think about the Ferraris? Because you said they qualified 1-2, and then this isn't the I know Mexico's a unique track, but this isn't the first time they've had a strong qualifying and have it not show up in the race.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's all about the race pace, especially when it comes to a track like Monza, like a lot of these faster tracks. You could push real hard for 1 or 2 laps, but after that, when you have to, like we saw, for instance, Lewis Hamilton for a lot of the race. Talking to his engineer about having to go out into the dirty air just to get some airflow through the radiators to cool the cars down. Those Ferraris, they may be able to push, like you said, real fast for those couple laps, not worrying about the engine. But then we've seen them have engine problems during the year. We've seen them not be so reliable throughout the course of the year. Maybe they were worried about that, so they had to run on a different plan than what the Red Bulls could run, who have a little bit better, engine reliability, or the McLarens, or the Aston Martins, or the AlphaTauris. Those cars might have, or Mercedes as well. They might have a little bit more reliability. Whereas the Ferraris, they're always constantly on. They're always on. In the tire life is always something that they're focusing on, because they want to make sure that they can last the entire race. They don't want to have any more DNFs. They're trying to push for that. What is it, third in the constructors as of right now that they're trying to get? Or
So I'll pull that up so we can look at it. But there's your constructors.
Exactly. So they're trying to still fight up there with Mercedes to get that.
And
second,
22
third
points
place
is easily doable in the last 3 races, making up 22 points. So
Exactly.
Yeah, no, they're right in there for that, and it's kind of looking forward to next year. Hopefully, they figure out a way to translate more of this qualifying pace to race pace because they've qualified really well, and then other
Yeah.
than Singapore, they hasn't shown up in the race.
I mean, we all know that
The
Red
other,
Bull's a monster. That Red Bull's
yeah,
just a
no,
monster.
for sure. But I mean, we're just hopeful that someone can put up a fight. And Ferrari's one of the teams you would expect to be able to do that with the resources they have, and it really hasn't happened despite qualifying seeming to go better. Just looking at the driver standings, obviously Max kind of running away with it, but that it's now 20 points between Hamilton and Checo for second. Which I mean, if you can't finish second in this car,
it's disappointing. I mean, it really is. It's kind of hard to say a travesty, something like that. Something more epic than even a disappointment. Because at the end of the day, like that car should be 1 and 2 every single race. It should be. I mean,
yeah.
Adrian Newey designed a rocket ship, and you hear it all the time on the announcements from the Formula One, announcements on Sky News or Sky Sports that they are the fastest car that they've seen in this new generation, by far. So it should be 1 and 2. It should be sweep of the weekend. They should always be up there qualifying 1 and 2, but it's just something weird with Checo with this car. I mean, I don't know what it is.
I think he's mentally lost it because he's in second still because he was racking up the points at the beginning of the year. It's just gone now.
And keeping in mind the first 3 races, right?
Yeah, no, he won a couple of races. He was leading the championship and heading into Miami. Mm-hmm. He qualified first. I think Max was in like 10th or something. Max caught and passed him so quickly that I think that was it. He was done since then. The other thing, keeping in mind, like this is actually a little bit exaggerated because again, we didn't have a show last week, so we never really talked about the Lewis Hamilton getting disqualified as well as Charles Leclerc last race because that was 17 points gone from Hamilton's total here. He'd be at 237.
And just to make a quick point to the disqualifications. Who said that Logan Sargent was going to be in the points?
I don't even know if we should count that. That was so
come on
engineered. Get the American a point. In America, we're going to disqualify 2 random cars. And then
I called it Logan Sargent in the points. I knew he was going to get it somehow, some way. And if the Eagles can get 10 penalties on the Dolphins and win a game like that, I guess the same thing can happen in Formula One.
Oh man, let's not pick that scab. Shout out to some people in the chat. Alex, Alex is one of our OG listeners that has not been not necessarily been on every show, but good to see Alex floating around. I'll definitely make sure to let Jazz know who had a last minute thing he had to do so he couldn't join tonight. I'll let him know he missed Alex. He likes to say late nights with Alex because of old. We did one Twitter Spaces, and that's driven a lot of the show culture. I mean, it does, it does feel like he should go. Like IndyCar does feel like a logical next move for Perez, but they're still backing him. They're still backing him.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to see him do something, something else. Try to get into maybe a WEC car or something like that. WEC endurance. Try to get in with some team. Maybe run Le Mans next year or even try IndyCar, like you said. But, IndyCar is so different with having to run the ovals and having to run the speedways. Not all Formula One racers can go into it and do that because they're so used to the different G-forces. They're so used to the different, feelings of it. I mean, look at Romain Grosjean. He's done okay in IndyCar, but it's not like he's dominated. And when he was in Formula One, he wasn't dominant, but he was a solid midfield, driver in Formula One. So, it might be good for him to maybe check it out, see what happens with it, how he can do it, if there's even a seat available. But I'd like to see him in sports cars. I think him in a Le Mans prototype or something like that going into, a hypercar, going into next year's Le Mans season might be kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's one of those. You don't got to go home, but you have to get the hell out of here. I think he's done. I can't.
For sure.
But apparently they're still backing him. So it's kind of a crazy situation.
Until they don't.
Yeah, until they don't. Exactly. Red Bull notorious for loyalty, right? So
exactly.
But the other thing that came out of it, we mentioned the double disqualification for Leclerc and for Hamilton in the previous race in Texas. It turns out so so it's supposed to be a random check, and then someone pulled up the numbers of when the cars were checked.
Yeah.
And it was the Mercedes and Ferraris getting checked significantly more than the rest of the grid for this violation until they got caught with it. Turns out not random. They came out after that. I was like, how could you randomly select these cars at half the races, and like Red Bull's been picked like once? Like, how is that random?
Yeah.
And they basically said, well, it's not random. We look at the ride height and the whatever, and we decide which ones. So basically, they've been nitpicking the Ferraris and Mercedes all year while letting everyone else probably violate half these things and not get it measured. And it's just another, Formula One has a credibility issue with how penalties are enforced, and this doesn't help. And you can argue whether or not it was definitely legal before the race because they check it before the race too. But by the end of the race, it was not in the legal bounds. So you can certainly argue it's fair to disqualify them. They're obviously arguing that it was wear and tear. We didn't design it that way. And of course, the Formula One, the response back, which again, you could argue is fair, is like, hey, it's your responsibility to make sure it stays within that range. But then when you start saying, well, we only check these cars repeatedly and kind of if everyone else does the same thing, they're not going to actually get even tested for it.
Yeah.
It kind of makes it, it's not, if it's not random, they should just, by the way, how long would it take to measure everyone's car? There's 20 cars. Like, I feel like, and half of them don't finish anyway. So like, or a handful of them don't finish anyway. Like, why don't you just check them all then?
Realistically, this is something that they should be checking every single team. They check every driver's weight at the end of the race.
Right.
How much longer is it going to take to have a steward in the garages that when they pull in the cars, they put them on the air jacks, they go up and they just walk under there with a little stick. Now, you see it in NASCAR all the time where they have a template that's a certain size, and you put that template on top of a part of the car to make sure that part of the car is correct. You could have a little template, something, a little piece of plastic or a piece of metal that's a certain size that you can just put right up to that plank. And a lot of people talk about this plank, that like, what was it, a piece of wood or something? No, it's a carbon, with little or titanium skids on it. So it's not like it's a long piece of something that's underneath the cars. You can see when it's getting worn away. Now, I think what more of the process is, because it was Ferrari and Mercedes, is those were the teams, remember last year, that were having a lot of difficulties with the ride height and determining where, with the porpoising and everything that was happening with the cars and how to set those cars up. Maybe it's something that they looked at it that last year, because I don't think we had one of these penalties last year, but maybe they were the teams that were the most egregious during those situations because those cars kept on porpoising. They kept on slamming down. They kept on, having that issue that they felt, oh, this year we have to keep an eye on those guys because they're going to have the similar issues. Those cars, all the downforce that's being created by the Venturi tunnels underneath those cars is what's causing them to go all the way down to that skid plate, down to that plank, and causing it to wear out like this. It's a little exaggerated going into Austin because of how the elevation changes and the downforce plays in there, and it's right at sea level, so the air is pretty thick as it is, and you're dealing with all of that. So maybe that affected it a little bit more. We haven't seen a penalty like this yet so far this year, so it was just here.
And I think you can debate whether they should penalize them when it's wear and tear, but I think it's hard to justify that those two cars just get checked repeatedly. To me, that's not fair.
Everybody should get checked.
Shout to Fernie in the chat. I think everyone has concluded Checo is done, but Red Bull. So once they conclude he's done, then he's done. You got Liam Lawson sitting there without a ride. You got Ricardo out qualifying Checo when he's using an AlphaTauri. It seems like there's a solution here that is pretty obvious to everyone else, but not Red Bull. But any other takeaways from the race before we kind of pivot to the upcoming race in Brazil?
Well, I got to shout out Lando. That he was the driver of the day that race. Going from 17th up to what, 8th and back down to 16th and back up to 5th. Like, the kid basically lapped the entire field, during the race for one during one point or another. He passed, multiple guys multiple times, and you could just tell in that last stint he was on a mission. He was flying through that field. There were some passes that I've never seen him make before because usually he's the timid one. I mean, we've seen him qualify really good, past few, races. And then as soon as a Mercedes gets up behind him, it's like, oh, here you go right ahead. Or a Red Bull gets behind him. It's like, okay, here you go right ahead, having the old Ole defense. But, it was good to see him fighting through. It was good to see him doing something, that somebody like a Checo wasn't doing. Like, even in the races where he was qualifying bad, you saw him in maybe one or two of them, but overall he was staying in that mid pack, even in that Red Bull. But you saw Lando, he was fighting through. He was pushing his way all the way up through the field multiple times just to try to get something out of it, and to come in a top 5 finish after starting P17 is pretty impressive. It makes you wonder what would have happened.
Yeah, the red flag helped for sure. Just getting kind of a free was definitely beneficial, although he didn't necessarily have the best tires to restart on. Like you said, drop back a little bit and fought back through. Yeah, it was a really good drive by him. Some comments in the chat here. Yeah, it does kind of suck for Liam Lawson. What else do you want from the kid? Yeah, it was a great drive from Lando. Danny Rick is back again. And then, yeah, I'm not sure for any. I think Tsunoda is going to be in that AlphaTauri next year. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Yeah, zero chance of this. There's no way.
Well, that's what they're talking about. They're saying something about Alonso. So I think where that's coming from is there was a rumor from one of the Mexican influencers or somebody who was at the Mexican Grand Prix who had said, something to the effect in Spanish or on Twitter or some space.
I saw that
about big news that's coming out. I heard about this. So then the speculation came to be, what is it going to be? Is it Fernando to Red Bull? Is it Fernando and Checo swapping rides for next year? Is it, Checo retiring? There was a few different rumors that were floating out there, is Fernando Alonso retiring? Is any?
I can't imagine. I can't imagine Red Bull putting Alonso next to Max and having Max deal with Alonso. Like, Alonso's a pain in the ass. Yeah. There's just no way. In fact, I think the only reason Checo hasn't been fired is he is in no way, shape, or form a threat to Max, and that's all they actually care about. And that's the reason he still has a job. But everyone else is like, this guy sucks. You could get someone better that could compete. They're like, we don't want someone that can compete.
Yeah, we just want Max to do his thing.
Yeah, and I think that's. But that does matter, right? Team harmony matters, and one of the reasons Max is going so well is because he's got the team backing, and you don't want to put a wild card in there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think from the way that that guy had announced it, could you see Fernando Alonso retiring? Like, I can see it happening, especially after this year, with all the frustrations he's had with the team, the fact that they started off so well, the fact that, maybe he's thinking this was my opportunity to be up there in the championship fight, and they've just fallen off like a sack of bricks, it just hasn't happened for them, especially after the summer break. And with Lance Stroll being there, we don't know the future of the team. With Lawrence Stroll, we don't know what's going to happen with them. So maybe it's time that he's going to say, hey, I'm going to hang it up and try to finally get that Indy 500 win and, the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, just looking at the driver's standings, which are on the screen, he's 5th now. He was 2nd at the beginning of the year because he kept putting in the podium. Mm-hmm. And, he's just kind of fallen down. And I don't know. I don't know what his motivation currently is.
Yeah.
I think the chat's on a delay, so he actually said he typed this kind of before he heard it. So you're on the same wavelength, Finn. As you, because again the chat's coming in late, and then he's definitely on board now. So
like I said,
it'd be interesting. It's the thing he hasn't done yet, right? And I think the realistically. I think he knows he's not going to win a championship in Aston Martin, but I think I think you're spot on with if he chooses to step away and maybe take another shot at IndyCar. This is not a race-winning car. At the beginning of the year, it looks like it might be able to.
Yeah.
And so now it's kind of like, no, you're falling behind the McLarens, you're behind the Mercedes, you're behind the Ferraris, you're obviously behind the Red Bulls. Like now you're all of a sudden like the 5th team on the grid, and that's not, at the beginning of the year there was 2nd team on the grid, so that certainly probably is weighing in as well.
I mean, there's more than a realistic chance that Lando's going to catch up for a 5th place. I mean, 169 to 183 isn't that?
Yeah, the way it's been going. I mean, there's 3 races left, 14 points. You can definitely do it.
Exactly.
Probably a little bit of both. Shout out to Miami Phil in the chat. I think they fell back a little bit. Everyone advanced. I think they advanced less.
Yeah.
And they've kind of and by the way, this isn't the first time that has happened with this team.
I mean, we always talk about how they are a team that likes to take the designs from other teams and kind of use them moving forward, and they just don't have the team to develop for themselves. So just like you were saying, a few years ago, this team was copying Mercedes. Now they're copying Red Bull. For the most part, copying, but they just can't develop like the other teams. They've shown that they can't develop like the other teams.
Right, and then again, they kind of there was a joke when they were, I think, still Racing Point at that point. They were the pink Red Bull or pink Mercedes.
They even had the little circle in the front of the nose.
Yeah, no, they completely copied it. Yeah, and then this one bore a lot of similarities to Red Bull at the beginning of the year, but then again, to your point, you're not going to be able to develop the car that well, and also there are other. So Red Bull's obviously like maximizing this design concept. You're not going to be able to compete with that, and there are other design concepts that will come out faster than your copy of that one. And then that's what has happened. As you said, like Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, they know their car. They're seeing where they know exactly what went into each part there, and they're able to make those evolutions of their design to get it to maximize their design, which is now just better than Aston Martin. So yeah, and then Kane's Cats Heat 305 here saying like it's a lock that Lando will pass Alonso. I think it, as long as he doesn't have like a DNF, probably.
Yeah, as long as nothing happens Interlagos or Las Vegas. Las Vegas I think is a wild card.
That's gonna be a crazy race, but but good segue, man, because it is time for the Brazilian Grand Prix. So
great track.
Yeah, this is a fun track. There's overtaking definitely at the end of at the main straight where the speed trap is indicated here. 2 DRS zones, but really the overtaking this is all from turn 12, 13. This is all just kind of like you're accelerating up the hill, up the hill, and then this is where the overtaking point is, and then this falls away downhill between turns 1 and 2. So you got to really stick it in there. What are your thoughts of this circus? This is one of my favorites, I gotta say.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a classic track. It's one of the best tracks. It's one of those races that this used to be the first race on the Grand Prix circuit. Back in the old days in the 60s, 70s, and stuff like that, because it's just such a big draw. So many race fans down in South America, Brazil especially. That straightaway going from 12 all the way into turn 1. Or not straight away, but long curve, flat out. It's one of the funnest things to watch those cars just scream up that hill and then go down into turn 1 and 2. It's very similar, like for people that know the tracks here in America. Laguna Seca has a turn like that they call the corkscrew. It's very similar to that, in the fact that you're going up a hill, you're flat out, you're going as fast as you can, and you have to basically go down to nothing to go into those first couple turns, and it's a fantastic track for that. It was the few years ago when who was it, Lewis Hamilton had the sprint race and then the main race where he basically just flew past everybody during the sprint race. What was it? He started last in the sprint race and ended up first in the at the end of the sprint or something like that. It was something ridiculous to that point that you could just tell these powerful cars, these cars that have that speed are really going to have the advantage here. I could see somebody like a Williams or even AlphaTauri again, have a good race here. At least have a good showing, but. Overall, this is it's going to be a fantastic race. It always is at Interlagos, always. How about you? What do you like about it?
Yeah, no, I agree, and I love the way that the fastest part of the track goes immediately into a turn that's downhill, falling away. That you kind of have to stick it in there, so it's really getting the braking point right. There's so many lines you can take into turns 1 and 2.
Oh yeah,
because you can go on the outside turn 1 and then sweep on the inside turn 2 and vice versa. So there's multiple ways you can even overtake there. It's an awesome track. And that there's always something there. And then we have seen overtakes and kind of incidents between turns 3 and 4 as well. There's another DRS zone there, and it's a test for the drivers too, because it is an exercise in patience and knowing when to make your move, I'm not going to go this time, because you get the breaking point wrong into turn 1. Again, the track's falling away from you. You're just going to go off. And there's a gravel trap at the top of the hill there. And then, if you take in too much speed, you'll lose it going around turn 2. And then there's a lot. So all of that, okay, when do I go for this overtake? When do I not? A lot of that, I love that the drivers have to kind of be patient, pick their spots there to overtake, but that they can actually overtake.
And it's not a big track. It's only, it's a relatively small track compared to a lot of the other ones.
Yeah,
minute 10
71 laps.
It's almost like it's a big go-kart track, and these guys are just hauling butt around it the entire time.
Yep, and then Miami Phil has a question here. Do you think you guys think Mercedes-Benz can replicate last year's performance at Brazil?
I mean, realistically, this Red Bull is it's unstoppable. As much as we would like to see somebody else do something good, it's going to be real tough. Now, they have experience here. Like I said, they had last year where they did really good. Wasn't this the race that George Russell won last year?
Yeah, I think that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, so
we don't talk about that here, but yes.
Well, he's your favorite driver. We got to say something about him.
Yeah, no, he won this race, and then Hamilton finished second. It was a 1-2.
Exactly. So I mean, they have a setup for it. They have the data from last year that they can work off of. How much that'll help, you never know. But sometimes some tracks just fit the way that the drivers drive a little bit better, and maybe you see something like a back saying, "Hey, I'm done. I've had enough." I mean, you would hope
look like
maybe,
it. Doesn't look like
maybe,
it. I've been waiting for it all year, but he keeps winning everything.
Exactly, but you really need something like a or somebody like a Mercedes or like a McLaren or a team that has the opportunity to push up there with him to be able to have him just say, "Hey, listen, I'm okay with second today." But there hasn't been that this year, and I don't think that it's going to happen.
I mean, we'll get into predictions in a minute. Yeah. I do think the way that the evolution Red Bull made over the break between last year and this year it's just so much faster now.
Oh yeah,
on the straights they've done something with their DRS legally, because I know they often get accused of cheating. This is not cheating. They've found a way to extract the maximum advantage. Actually, the rest of the teams are trying to figure out exactly what they're doing there, but that's the big difference here. Like, I think they're gonna, even if they don't qualify at the top, which has been pretty consistent. They haven't qualified at the top as consistently as they've won races. With the power nature of the kind of the start finish, that area, it's hard for me to see anyone really holding them off here. And that's kind of what they've really the reason they've been so dominant. Obviously, they have the best car. They have the driver on top of his game. And they're meshing so well, they're just dominating. But also, when they have something go wrong, when they qualify out of position, because oh crap, we misjudged this, we missed the lap time, or oh, there was an issue on my car when I was doing. Because of the way that they've got the DRS working so seamlessly, they're just able to overtake so easily, and that's why there have been times where they've qualified way out of position. Usually, in the past, when there's been dominant cars, they're dominant and they run well in clean air. They run well when they're front, but then when you get them out of position, they kind of struggle a little bit. This car has been almost the opposite because of the DRS and getting a tow, and they're just able to zip past teams. So I think that's why it's so challenging.
But not only just that, but they have great team. The plans, like their strategies. That's the word I was looking for. They have great team strategies. You know, it was 2 races ago. It was when Lando and Lewis Hamilton were up there in the front, and he was in third or coming back up from or through the field when Max Verstappen was coming up through the field. Lando pitted and then Max pitted right after him, and you could just tell right then and there it was like, okay, this is going to be it. This is the end of the race for Lando, because they were now both on the same tires. They were now both on the same strategy. Like the strategies that they've done and the choices that they've made throughout the race weekend or throughout the actual race. What tires to go on, when to pit, when to do for the undercut, when to go for the overcut. Those choices really have also set them apart just as much as how dominant the car has been. You have a Ferrari that has great, qualifying pace and, goes to the race. It seems like they're going to be great, but then they make a bonehead decision, or they, bring in both cars instead of, stacking them, or instead of, all having different strategies, so that they can at least have somebody, move forward a little bit, or, they don't have one or the other, overtake, or, have team orders with them going, because Leclerc would be faster and, they wouldn't let them pass. So it was like situations like that. Like, you see a lot of, Red Bull, they make great decisions. And maybe that's just because they only have to worry about one car that they have to make a decision about. You got Checo doing whatever it is he's doing, and then you only have to focus on Max. You can just focus on Max.
And I think that the bottom line with their car is, and then obviously again they have really strong. I mean, Hamilton, he ended up getting disqualified, but I mean, you can argue that the slow Mercedes pit stops in Austin cost him that race, or at least provisionally waved the race before they would have DQ'd him anyway. But the other thing, just to kind of tie this point off, they just understand their car so well, so it helps their strategy decisions. They kind of know what it's going to do in situations, and it feels like, in particular, Ferrari is still kind of guessing, and they just have a better understanding of the car. That's why they're able to develop it to maximize it. But there could be a wild card, because if you've checked the weather forecast, we have some. So we're looking at Friday, 77% chance right now. Keeping in mind that this is a sprint weekend, which actually we got the schedule here. So qualifying for the race is on Friday, and then Saturday is a sprint shootout in the sprint, and then Sunday obviously the race itself. So a rain, thunderstorms during qualifying might make a mixed up grid. There is some rain forecast throughout the weekend, but heavy chance on Friday, so maybe that'll mix some things up. That
would be interesting.
That would be pretty interesting. Yep. In terms of the tire compound, they've kind of gone with the middle set, C2 to C4. They've been doing that pretty regularly. Yeah. And then, now back to the schedule. It is it's a sprint weekend, so practice 10:30 on Friday, qualifying 2 p.m., sprint shootout 10 a.m. on Saturday, sprint 2:30 on Saturday, and then the race at noon on Sunday. So definitely Friday is a wet one, so should be fun. Maybe we'll mix the grid up and we can watch Max do a bunch of overtakes. But all right,
that'd be nice.
All right. It is, I think, everyone's favorite time of the show. Predictions. If you're in the chat, throw them in there as well. I do have Jazz's, but Evan, I'll allow you to go first.
So I mean, we've already talked about it pretty much. Max is the car's just so dominant. I think we're gonna see a Max P1. We'll see what happens with the qualifying. We'll see what happens with that. But at the end of the day, that car's going to drive past everybody, no matter if you put them in 10th or 20th. That car's it's so much faster than everybody else. It's kind of hard to say this every single week, but it really is the facts of the matter. You're going to see him do that, and hopefully it makes for an enjoyable race, if he doesn't start first and end up first. But I'm going to go Max 1. I'm going to go Hamilton 2 and Lando 3, with my wild card being Ricardo in the top 7.
Oh, so you think the AlphaTauri is going to push it back? All right, so interesting. So Miami Phil in the chat's got Hamilton first, Verstappen second, Norris third. Don't forget to throw your surprise off the wall prediction, which basically never. Although we both hit ours on the last prediction we did for Austin.
Mm-hmm.
So let me get Jazz's here. So Jazz has Hamilton 1, so he's got him winning as well. Max second and Leclerc third, so he's almost aligned with Miami Phil here. He just has Leclerc instead of Lando, and his surprise, Russell DNF. I feel attacked.
It's not a surprise anymore.
He stole mine. He stole my go-to move. Now I got a thing on the fly. You know, he knew I was going to go. I always like to go Russell DNF. It's always a good shout, even though I don't even know the last time he's DNF. So it's definitely a surprise if it happens. You know what? I'll mix it up a little bit. I'll go Lando getting his first win. Go there, and then
I'd enjoy that.
I mean, and then I'll go Hamilton second, and I'll go Sainz third, and I'll go Max DNF because there's only way he's not winning this is if something breaks on his car. So
Max DNF.
I'll just say something happens with the Red Bull. It doesn't. He's got a hydraulic problem. I don't know. I'm making stuff up here, but I'm trying to get some synergy here. So if he DNFs, then someone else can win. So that's what
he fights with Lando into turn 1, slides off the side of the racetrack, and wrecks or goes into the gravel pit and can't get the car out. That's a possibility.
It is a possibility.
Remember when he raced against or when him and Hamilton were going at it. That's what kept on happening. It happened like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, but that was
going on the downhill.
That was in the heat of a championship fight that ended up coming down to the last race. I think everything is a little bit less intense this year for everyone when the championship was over in like June. So yeah, no, it should be a good race again. Just to recap the timings on this, the race is Sunday at noon. The sprint shootout race the sprint race is at wait, how do you have a double podium if you didn't? You gotta be somewhat logically consistent, man. You can't put Hamilton, Verstappen, Norris, then surprise double podium. They're supposed to all your dreams are supposed to be able to come true here.
Hamilton hasn't drove for McLaren in many years.
I mean, I'll still take him. I'll take credit for some of those titles too while we're at it. But yeah, the race is Sunday at noon. The sprint race is at 2:30 on Saturday, and then again the qualifyings are in the morning for sprint shootout, and then the qualifying for the race is Friday afternoon. So. It should be a fun weekend. It's
going to be a great weekend. We get to watch the Miami Dolphins play at 9:30 a.m. on Sunday. Have a nice breakfast.
That is backwards. That is so backwards. I mean,
I love it.
I love it. Phil, we got no rules here. You can do whatever you want, my friend. Like there's no enforcement. There's no standings on the picks. We just make shit up as we go. So you're more than welcome to overlap your predictions there, and
we talk F1 and have a great time.
Yeah. This is we're not scared about that. So you can do whatever you want. If you want to go McLaren double podium, that is all right with us. All right, Evan. Well, so again, it'll be a fun weekend in Brazil. We'll be back next week, kind of recap that, and then we are 2 weeks away. I don't know if I'm going to like it every year, but as a first year, I am really looking forward to Vegas and the craziness that driving. It's almost like a square oval. It's going to be an interesting race.
Have you seen the controversy so far over there?
No, wait, what is it? I totally missed that.
So there's a bridge that goes over the track, right?
Okay.
And so Formula One on the bridges, there's like glass planes that go along the side of the bridge. Obviously, they, for normal usage, they don't want people to do things on that bridge or go around that bridge. But for the race, they don't want anybody watching it. They don't want anybody standing on that bridge watching the race. So they lined it with this semi-clear, hazy film on these glass panels. But for the past week, everybody's been peeling them off. So they've literally been sitting there and peeling these glass film off on this one bridge, and they had to redo the whole thing. So now they redid it, but they put metal bars in front of it so people can't reach over and peel that off. And they have it light lit So like there's like a pretty much a steel cage and there's lights on it. So when the lights turn on, that film is going to be completely, non-transparent. There, you won't be able to see through it at all because it's just going to reflect the light off of the from those lights. So it's basically making it into a tunnel so that people can't stand up there and watch the race from up there because you don't have to buy tickets to go on that little
just crossing the
bridge.
street. Right? Yeah.
Exactly, you're just crossing the street.
I mean,
So they
it's
don't
gonna
want that to happen.
be it's gonna be a shit show because like Vegas is already crowded all the time. If you've never been out to a Formula One race, it is loud.
Oh yeah.
I think it's gonna definitely be interesting because they'll certainly be able to hear it from the overpass even if they can't see it. So
Oh yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. We'll see it. We'll see how that goes, and if I would like, obviously, it's going to be there for several years, but we'll see.
I just hope it's a good race.
I think it'll be interesting. It's the track layout because they wanted to do it on the strip. Like they had options. Obviously, Vegas is in the desert, so you have plenty of land if you want to build a track or whatever.
Yeah,
they wanted to do it on the strip.
Well, they want more street courses.
Yeah, but the thing with that specific thing is it's a gridded city, so it's not. Yeah. When you're gridded city, you're gonna get right angle turns. So if you look at the track layout, it's a lot of straights and a lot of like 90-degree turns. So it should be an interesting time and a good race. But that's in a couple of weeks. This week, Brazil, which we know is going to be a good time. It's an awesome track, good atmosphere. The Brazilians love Formula One, so you get a really good crowd out there too. So. So definitely check that out this weekend. As Evan said, the Dolphins will be playing at 9:30, and then after that's done, you can kind of do it reverse. Usually we wake up, watch Formula One, and then pivot to football. We're gonna do it in reverse on Sunday. So yeah, then we'll be back next week. We'll see if Jazz is back with us to wrap this up. We did get his predictions in there. So all right, Evan, my man, thanks for joining me today.
Anytime.
All right, everyone, take care. We'll see you all next week.